Thank you, Mr. Stroud, again for agreeing to talk with us. We want to talk about your life and you know where you grew up, how it used to be in Athens, etc. So where were you born?
I was born right here in Athens, Georgia. Matter of fact, back during that time, we didn't go to the hospital to be born. We had midwives, and I was born over on Brooklyn Road, the house my brother stay in now, and we were raised up there.
Okay.
So.
And tell me about your parents and your grandparents.
Okay, my parents, I guess you look at my dad, then that would be George Stroud Sr. My mother, Emma Stroud, she was a Flanagan, George Flanagan, Elder Flanagan, which was her mother, my grandmother and grandfather. And you have my grandfather on my father's side, but then that would be Ed Stroud, which was down in Watkins-Ville, well, not Watkins-Ville, he was in Farmington, and but he had his presence, I think, with the school system in Watkins-Ville.
Okay. He was at Rosenwald, I believe, before Ed Stroud. Do you know, how much can you tell me about that?
I can remember him being, as we grew up, him being principal of Rosenwald.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I think he was even principal when my dad grew up, because my dad used to tell me how he used to do in school, and I mean, you just didn't get away with anything there. They used to hate to see him come. So he was a stern fella. He was a very educated fella. People didn't know back during that time, and I was told that he spoke 5 different languages.
Wow.
And that included Latin and some of the others that you had. So he was a very prominent person within the community there.
So tell me a little bit more then about your parents. What did they do?
Okay, my dad was, first of all, he was an insurance carrier with the North Carolina Mutual Insurance, and he also was a school bus driver, and for a long time he was a barber. And matter of fact, we didn't get, no one else cut my hair, I can say, until I went to college.
Really? Okay.
So he was the only person that cut our hair. And he was a deacon at Mount Zion Church in Farmington, Georgia. That was the home place for, I mean, where they were born and they were raised.
Okay.
So he was quite instrumental. My mother mostly did domestic work. She did do some educational work. I think one time she was a teacher in summer school. You didn't have to have a degree then, but so much had to have a high school certificate to do that. And she did do some teaching also, but mostly domestic work.
And you mentioned Oconee County and the Strouds. So that's where they were from?
That's where he was from, my dad and etc. My granddad was from somewhere else farther down in there, somewhere down near Appalachia, if I'm correct. And I think he had some Strouds down there, and that's where they moved from there up to Farmington, which they did have a big farm there. And they
in Farmington?
Right. It was a farm, and matter of fact, I used to love going down to that. And
tell me about the farm.
Well,
what do you remember?
He had everything on there that you could want to eat. They would sell fruit, sell vegetables, anything that you want from that. But I would go down there because, we would go, my brothers and I and cousin, because he let us play, and he let us drive the truck, shoot the rifle, whatever, and practically get away with anything that we wanted to do. And he just loved having his grandchildren there. And we just enjoyed it, and the farm itself was a big, huge farm. I tell people all the time, tell my granddaughter, here I am in the store buying watermelons for $6, and we used to take the truck and go to the field and bust a watermelon, eat the heart out, and throw the rest of it to the hog. So it was just a wonderful experience when you really look at it.
Right. What happened to that farm? Is it still in the family and all?
No, it wasn't in the family. I can't remember if it was sold. I know when he died by his second wife, because he had 2 wives. My grandmother died, but I never saw my grandmother. She died before I got a chance to see her.
And what was her name?
Her name was Maddie.
Okay.
And from Gainesville area. And very beautiful lady, I was told. And but I never seen her and never had a picture and this kind of. And I've often said, if we could do a trace there and find a picture somewhere, but we hadn't been able to do that either. So, but she was a beautiful lady, but he married again after her death, and I think, if I'm correct, the second wife may have sold that. It could have been leased property in some way, but it was a lot of acres of land.
And so, did your dad move to Athens?
Right, he moved.
Brooklyn area?
Right, he moved to Athens probably immediately when he got grown, really. He was ready to get up the farmland. And he went to work up at what was called Normal Town, the Normal School, up there where the naval base.
Right.
And he worked at the Normal School there, and then as far as marriage and this kind of thing, and from there family developed.
Okay. And tell me about when you started to school. Okay,
I started to school at, I'm trying to think, back in 1946 or somewhere around in that area. Anyway, this was at UBI, what we call Union Baptist Institute, which at one time was Gerald Academy. And Gerald Academy stood for whereby it was controlled by the Baptist Association. This was a church school. The school itself, the history when you look at it, it started in Ebenezer Church.
In Ebenezer? At
Ebenezer Church. And then they got the land on Back Street where Brumby Hall is now. And they built a building there. And I often tell people, I just wish they had had the technology they have now, that they could have really saved that school, and it would have been a beautiful sight.
Right.
But that's why I started in first grade and went from there up through the 10th grade. And that's when the county took over the school. It was a Union Baptist Institute up until I think about 1954. And then the county took over the school and it became Union Institute. So we had two high schools, which a lot of people fail to realize. We had two high schools here in Athens, black high school. Well, not just high school, two black schools, because Union went from 1st through 12. And AHIS, Athens High Industrial, went from 1st through 11, which later they changed to 12 in 1956. But you had Union where it went from 1st to 12. Well, we just, I guess you would look at the prospects there. It was a very good experience. But then when the county took over that, it became Union Institute. And they dropped the Baptist. It became Union Institute. And then from there, you had, in 1956, you had the consolidation of schools. The old black Athens High and Industrial, which was, we looked at and people said that was a city school because it was run by the city government. You had two governments, county and city. And the UBI, well, we're not UBI at that time, but Union Institute at that time was run by the county. So when the county and city kind of merged there as far as education was concerned, they combined the schools and they built the school here, up here, what is now the Edwards Building, which became Athens High and Industrial School. So we, in 10th grade, then I went there, and that's where I graduated from.
Tell me about the early grades or early years at Union.
Oh, there was something. It was beautiful, and then again, it was hard. It was very strict. I tell people all the time that one thing that we look at, people said, having a God in the school and this kind of thing. We had that. With Professor Lyons, which was the principal at the time, you stayed on track. And we had what you had every morning, chapel. We had a big auditorium, and we had chapel. We would go there, and we would look at, we'd sing spiritual song, pray, and this kind of thing before school started. That was a requirement. You didn't miss chapel either. And from that, you went to school, went to early school. And at some points, you found that the teachers that we had, you had 2 or 3 grades in one room. Like you may have had 2nd and 3rd grade together. And I know you had in math, I can remember going there, you had 4th, 5th, and 6th grade together. And one teacher taught those. And we were so disciplined at that time. If she was teaching us math and she gave us assignment, we could go to the chalkboard and we could work there while she's over in the other section teaching the other kids something else. I mean, we were no discipline problem there either, because we didn't want to go to Professor Line.
Right.
And because Professor Line had a belt there, and he didn't mind using it. So it just went that way, and then through the 8th grade is pretty much the same thing. You may have changed classes 2 or 3 times, and same thing in the 9th and 10th grade on that. So,
can you tell me who some of your teachers were?
Starting back in Primer, we call them. I think they call it what now? Kindergarten or pre-K. We had Miss Hendry, and Miss Hendry, well, she not only taught the pre-prim in the 1st grade, she taught the 4th, 5th, and 6th sometime too.
About how many students were in a class?
I would say you have 15 to 20 students in most of your classes, at least that many. And sometimes you may have had more than that. And but you found that Miss Hendry was one of the teachers I had. I remember Miss Gibb, Miss Ruth Gibb. I used to live up here on Hancock. And then I had Miss Davis. I can't remember her first name. I had Miss Joseph Neal.
Okay, Miss Neal.
She was Miss Joseph at the time, Miss Helen Neal. And so she was one of the teachers. And then I had Reverend Hawk, which taught there. I had Miss Wingfield. I can't remember, Agnes Wingfield. That's she taught me there. And then I had, believe it or not, and I tell people, my own brother in the 10th grade. That may have been the hardest one. That's what he used to tell people all the time when he said I was his worst student.
That was Mr. Howard B.
That was Howard B.
Yeah, okay.
So he was my teacher. That was his first year teaching, and he was my English teacher that year. So from that, after that, then you had the consolidation of schools. And there may have been others that I missed. I didn't mention.
What do you remember about the school itself, like the structure?
The physical structure?
Right, yes.
Okay, it was a brick building, believe it or not. And it was a boarding school for counties, surrounding counties at one time. You had a dorm for the ladies, the girls, which set off from the school.
So there were more than one buildings?
Yeah, definitely. It was. And then plus where they added on, they had another building connecting to that. So upstairs in the school, that's where the boys stayed. And they used to come from different counties and this kind of thing, and go back, and they stayed upstairs. And then the girls stayed in the dorm, which was next door to that. So it was kind of like a boarding school. And I think they said they paid something like 25 cents a week or something to go to school. So it's a historic
thing. What about the surroundings then? Of course, now it's UGA and the dormitory. What was the surroundings like at that time?
It was a community surrounding, believe it or not. Where a lot of the buildings and all of this, there were houses. People lived there on Baxter Street before you get down there to Parkview and etc. So I can remember the store down there that we tried to slip down to.
Some community have named that community?
I can't recall what the name of it was, but we got quite a few students from the street that was back of the school. I know from there. And we used to get a lot of students from the area in Rock Spring area. Because the parents would send them there. And Reverend Kenyon would tell you all the time he went there. His parents and he said he didn't want to go there at first, but his parents sent him there. And but he said he wouldn't give nothing for it now that he went there because he knew what the discipline was when he come there. So it was just a type of thing that people looked at and they loved it.
There was another school on Baxter Street that I read about, the Baxter Street School. Do you know anything about that?
Baxter Street
School. Mr. Killian knew about it. I think that was one of the was a public school building.
I can't remember.
But later it became a white school, I think.
It was a school, a building, they said, right across the street from Union, but I don't remember seeing the ruins of it years later. That could have been one there. But that was long before my time, I think. But that's where Union was.
So there was neighborhoods?
Yeah, it had neighborhoods around it. Matter of fact, Professor Lyons had a house that he stayed in right next to the school.
Right there on Baxter Street?
Right there on Baxter Street. And from that, and just like I said, it was just a long street going down, and you had some houses down below the dorm and etc. In the community. Now UGA was there, but quite naturally wasn't like as large as it is now.
Right. Okay.
The Sanford Stadium has always been there as far as I can remember.
Okay.
And you just didn't have the growth of it that you got now. I'm sure.
Okay. When did they tear down that building? Union.
We left there. The last class was in 1956.
56.
So it was sometime after that. I can't remember what year it was, but the Jarrett Association sold the property to the University of Georgia.
Okay.
And then from there, that's when they demolished the buildings and things.
And so did you go through the 12th grade there?
No, I went through up to the 10th grade.
Right.
And then when they consolidated the two schools, Athens High and Union, then I went from there to that.
You went from, in 56, you went to Athens High and Industrial?
No, 56 and 57, I went to Athens High and Industrial.
Okay. And that was the building right down the street?
Right down the street.
Okay.
So.
So what was that like? Who were the teachers there? And